Hi everyone, hope you are all doing well and welcome back to another video on New World. So the open beta has been running for a few days now and is actually already starting to draw to a close. And kind of unlike the previous tests and the alpha test, since this one's only been really running for a few days, I haven't really been going super hardcore with it. But I did want to summarise my thoughts on the game so far, along with some of the changes we've had from the previous testing, and kind of ask the question, has the game improved between the two tests? The core game is fundamentally very much the same. When they initially announced the delay from the 31st of August to the 28th of September, some people were theorising this was kind of down to Amazon's desire to add in additional content. But I never really felt it was that way, or that was the cause. I know we've had some information about things like the Void Gauntlet and new stuff coming to the game, but that is very much planned for after release. And as we've kind of seen in the open beta, nothing has really changed. You only have to look at the patch notes to see that the changes are all about either bug fixing or balancing. So let's kick things off with that then, with the bug fixing. I kind of feel like it's 2 steps forwards and 1 step backwards. Some of the main issues with the previous test have certainly been fixed. To take just one example, spawn rates. I'm sure we all experienced the situation where, we're stuck waiting for a specific mob to spawn, along with another 30 people who also want to kill it and skin it, and it just becomes a massive bottleneck. They have certainly improved this a lot. That was a big complaint last time, and I feel like they've listened to that and dealt with that. If anything, a little too much. I hardly have time to kill the mob, get in, loot the chest, and get back out before they spawn again. And if I stop to take a sip of tea or anything like that, then everything respawns on me and I die. But I'd rather have these fast respawn rates than waiting for things to respawn. But on the flip side of that, I feel we've almost generated as many new bugs as have we kind of solved the old ones. A nice new audio issue for me, which sometimes cuts in and out. And I don't think I'm the only one getting this, quite a few people have reported it, it's listed in the kind of known issues, but very frustrating when you're particularly trying to do any sort of PvP and the whole thing is completely silent. I also have seen some people reporting optimization issues, and loads of other small problems, from quests being broken to mobs getting stuck, all pretty standard bug issues, and not necessarily huge problems that Amazon can't solve, but slightly concerning when we only have 2.5 weeks left until full release. And just for clarity, I'm by no means suggesting they should be delaying it. I think we have probably delayed too many times already now, and I think further delays at this late stage are just going to drive too many players away from the game. But I do still hope some of these issues can be sort of sorted and solved in the short time we have left before release, because it's going to make a huge impact on how the game feels at launch. That then leads us on to the balance changes. We have seen some pretty significant weapon and class changes in this test, and honestly I quite like the bulk of the changes that they've made. To take the healer for example, the shift of healing to give that 20% boost into light armor seems like a pretty good way of balancing a class. You can't be a super tanky and have the full effect of healing. Same as you get that 20% damage boost in light armor. You're kind of putting that balance between less protection, more damage, higher protection, less damage. And the same is now true of the healing. And it brings more into line a class that was certainly very strong during the last beta test. The small nerfs and buffs to some of the weapons. An example of a small nerf, something like the hatchet, got a small reduction to the length of its berserker and the healing, and as someone who used the hatchet almost primarily during the last test, I think that is a positive change, because it was certainly one of the stronger classes, and it's only a small nerf just to bring it back, take it back down into line a little bit more, and it kind of seems to show that Amazon are understanding the weapon balance situation pretty well, and they're doing a reasonable job of addressing the community concerns. We've also seen some very significant boost to late game mob difficulty, increased health and damage, very significantly so for elite zones, which is certainly going to make that end game content a little bit more of a challenge. Probably a positive change really in my opinion, although it's going to shift the balance a little bit about elite zones as a levelling method. Same in the same sense that they have also applied a further nerf to the town projects. I've actually been kind of testing a little bit of these town projects out during the open beta, and yeah, they're still an effective levelling method, but they're now kind of a side levelling method. They're not the main way that you can level your character, kind of like they were during the last test. So again, all these are positive changes, and I think considering that they've reduced some of the levelling difficulty, sort of between 10 and 30, to make it so you can level up a little bit quicker, you know, up to that point, I think this is really a pretty good balance change. One area of balance I think they kind of misjudged and got wrong, however, though, was the PvP scaling. I guess this is probably always going to be a controversial one. Some people really like the idea of a fully hardcore PvP system, you know, where a level 60 can easily flatten a level 40 without even thinking about it, because that level 60 has ground out that equipment, he's put in the hours, he's done the work, and therefore he should be able to do that. And in some games, that works, and I agree. I think Conquer's Blade is an example of a game that does work like that. But in this game, which is sort of targeting as much casual players as it is hardcore MMO players, then some players are only going to be playing for an hour or two a night. Maybe they work full time, have a family, whatever. And if you set up a system where they basically stand no chance of ever winning in a PvP fight, particularly when we're going to be having high level players in the starting areas, which we very much are going to do, then what's the point in them bothering to flag for PvP ever, really? They're just going to get stomped on. They're never going to have any fun in that as a system, and they're never really going to make use of it. And once you start to actively try and sort of dissuade people or put people off from flagging for PvP, then the system really starts to die, because there's no one flagging, and therefore it's not fun to flag, and it's just a self-defeating cycle. Now, of course, there is still a PvP scaling system in the open beta. It's just a reduced version of what we had in the closed beta. And I think they went just a little bit too far in how much they've reduced it. Maybe sort of a compromise position between the previous beta and now where we are in open beta would be a good way of doing it. But I certainly think the current system, they've made it too easy for higher level people to beat the low levels. I mean, there is hope for this. If you go and look over on the New World Twitter, it does look like the complaints from the community have kind of been heard and passed on. So hopefully this is something that will be considered and hopefully adjusted before the game releases at the end of the month. So where does that leave us as to the state of the game currently? Fundamentally, nothing radically has changed since the last test. It's good to see active and weapon and class balancing, a desire to fix the bugs, and I hope we're going to be able to keep to this September 28th release date. Although, I've got to say, I do have some concerns that this may end up getting pushed back. Although, I actually just really hope I'm wrong on this one. I'm ready to play now, and I think a lot of people are, and I think a delay is only going to harm the game. I still get the same sense of excitement and enjoyment out of the game as I did when I first played back in the alpha. It's a really exciting concept. I really am looking forward to getting stuck into the game for proper next time with the release. And finally, I really hope they increase the number of servers for release though. We had almost 150,000 players during this open beta, and at least in our guild, only about a third of the players were playing. It's going to be far more players at release, so I hope they understand this and can cope with the player load at launch without having sort of really significant server queue times and server issues, because otherwise that's going to sort of negatively impact the player experience at the start of the game. And so many MMOs fall foul of underestimating kind of the numbers of players that are going to hit at launch. And, you know, if anything like Arcade was anything to go by, no one wants to be sitting in 10 hours server queues. So that's something that I really hope they can deal with. Anyway, we'll end the video there. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel for a lot more New World content. Thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you all on the next one.